Welcome to the Call Your Shot podcast, your weekly sports recap podcast where we break down the hottest headlines, dissect the latest injuries, and serve up our own hard-hitting analysis of the past week in sports. But that's not all. We're not just here to talk about the past, we're here to predict the future as well. On the Call Your Shot podcast, we boldly predict the outcomes of the upcoming week's games.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for listening. This is the Call Your Shot podcast with your hosts, Alex Harris and Drew Moore. Before we get started, we just want to give a quick shout out to Drew for holding down the fort last week. We weren't able to really, agree on a time where we could both film. We weren't both busy, so Drew just took one for the team and did the thing all solo. So shout out to you, Drew. Okay. All right. Nope. No need for applause. Take a bow. I'd like to thank the Academy.
You're far too kind.
The Academy. But we got a jam-packed episode. We cover a few of the games that happened this week, preview our conference championship matchups, and then get in the NBA just a little bit at the end. So what game would you like to get in first here, Drew? So a lot of good games.
We can start off with the one that I guess I was most wrong about. I wouldn't say I was most wrong about, but the Lions and the Buccaneers game. I had a couple good picks in there. I had Mike Evans over 100 receiving yards, which is great. That hit. And I was plus 200. So that covered up for what we lost there in that pick, taking the 6.5 with the Bucks. But I did like what the Bucks were trying to do there at the end, which a lot of people are going to give them flack for, and I get it. Why would you go for two? Instead of just kicking the field goal, making it a one score game, regardless, so on and so forth. But the analytics make sense.
Math.
Exactly. The math was mathing, and if they would have gotten that, all you got to do is just kick the extra point, and after you score again, game over, ball game. But that's the risk you run. If you don't get it, then you end up losing by 8 instead of 6. So
did you see the end of the game too? Apparently there was a lot of, I don't want to say if it's controversy, but apparently the Lions kneeled the ball a little too quickly on their down. So the Bucks had one timeout left, and I think the Lions need the ball with 37 seconds left. So they low-key could have taken a timeout and tried to, it would have been a long field goal, or the Lions would have punted or something like that, but at least give them a chance. But the Bucks were just nah, yeah. we'll take this one on. I was like, oh,
they did.
Nah,
this
couldn't
is
have
it.
been me.
We're done.
Yep. I was really impressed, honestly, by Baker in this game. I'm not gonna lie.
I was impressed, but I wasn't surprised. I talked about it last week, how the Lions defense have been trending down, and I still can't get that Nick Mullins game out of my head. If you allow that man to throw for anything, if you allow him just to throw, okay, you allow him to throw anything more than 250 yards, you have a bad defense. And so the fact that Baker Mayfield walking in here and just putting up basically 350 yards, 349 if you want to be exact, and 3 touchdowns. Yeah, he had 2 picks or whatever, but that's Baker. That's what you're going to get from him. I should have, honestly, thinking back in hindsight's 2020, I should have also played Baker Mayfield over on his passing yards if I was expecting a big game from Mike Evans. The only way you can have a big game as a wide receiver is from the quarterback. So, but I think this game was interesting too, because this is yet another game where the Lions were outgained in the game, and it's starting to make me think that a lot of those interviews that their coaches are getting might be getting to them in the sense that they're not able to have as much time to scheme up the correct defenses. Even though, they weren't really scheming up the right defenses throughout the whole year. But, even more so in this point, because this is ultimately going to be their next move in their career, having a chance to be a head coach somewhere. So I think that's kind of interesting that they had 10 less plays or 11 less plays than the Lions did, yet they still outgained them.
It's kind of been a trend too, overall throughout the league, whether it be the Lions assistant coaches or the Texans or even the Ravens, people talking about could it potentially play a role when it comes to planning for a game plan and things of that nature when you kind of have all these other things going on, try to potential interviews coming up, things of that nature, trying to be a head coach. So that is kind of like an interesting point. And I'm not exactly sure how much of a role it plays into the games, but I mean, it is definitely a possible factor. The Lions, it was a weird game. So Baker had that early interception, and the Lions looked kind of like they were going to take control of the game throughout, but then the Bucks were slowly able to start coming back, and then towards the end of the half, they tie up the game, and then they get ball after halftime. Ultimately, they aren't able to capitalize on that, but it was kind of like a reverse script for the Lions, because last week against the Rams, they scored early, and then they kind of mellowed out throughout, and basically just had to hold the Rams. This time, they started off kind of slow, and then they have 3 touchdowns in the second half. So I'm not exactly sure how much confidence I have in the 49ers or in the Lions over the 49ers. We're getting into that in a little bit, but it was kind of a weird script for the Lions here. Baker, again, though, I think played very well. It's just the big underdog, just a big underdog. But I think he played well. I think that he deserves this contract that he's probably going to get in the offseason. And yeah, I think that the Bucks ended up kind of making the best out of the season. You lose Tom Brady, and then you basically go into the divisional playoffs the next season. So I don't think it's too bad. Mm-hmm. And they were playing with Hasselbeck. We both agreed with that. Them and the Packers.
Yeah, and I mean, does this mean that Tom Brady's just a system quarterback?
That means he's 45.
I guess. But yeah, I mean, going up against, well, we'll get into it later, but I mean, going up against the 49ers is going to be a whole different beast than going up against Baker Mayfield in that offense. Because if you're giving up 350 yards to Baker Mayfield, just imagine what Brock Purdy is going to do in a game where there's not rain.
Okay, fair enough. I'm like, he didn't look too great.
Like, whenever there's not rain, he's still slinging that thing. But if there's rain, then I guess he has like tiny hands, is what people were saying, and it's causing problems. So, yeah.
Any points on Jared Goff? It's kind of like, I don't want to say like they're the Cinderella story, because the Lions have been good all season, but I mean, at least for me, I didn't expect them to get this far. You could say that I don't want to say that they lucked into anything, because the Eagles were out. They were obviously dwindling and falling apart right in between the playoffs. The Bucks took care of them, and then you kind of have to face Baker Mayfield and the Bucks, who are kind of an overachieving team, I guess you could say. And now you got the Lions in the conference championship for the first time since the 90s. But I think it will be a solid game between them and the 49ers. And Jared Goff played this game, and he actually had to deal with a little bit more pressure. That's what the Bucks did last game against Jalen Hurts, and they got a little bit of pressure to Jared Goff too, but he was still able to take care of the ball, had about almost 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks. So it was a solid game overall, and still have a dual threat with Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, and then Amon-Ra just being solid. And then Laporta, who had more volume than anybody on the team, and has been kind of like a godsend for them as a rookie. So
yeah, I mean, Jared Goff's been solid. He's passed really all the tests over the past, few weeks or so down the stretch, where everybody's like, oh, it's a big game. It's Jared Goff. He's just going to, flounder. He's going to do what he does and turn over the ball, lose the game for the team and everything. But I mean, ever since that Dallas game where he pretty much had his worst game possible, he went against Minnesota, had 2 touchdowns, no picks, one touchdown against the Rams last week, or 2 weeks ago, no interceptions, 2 touchdowns last week, no interceptions. And I mean, he's doing what he can in terms of being I don't want to say a game manager, but he's doing more than what he's asked for in the system, and he's actually being a productive member of the team, I'll say. Versus on the Rams, he was more so like, okay, Sean McVay's like whispering in his ear, throw it to this player on your third drop back or whatever, and basically telling them, do this, do that. And now we're seeing the Jared Goff that was drafted as the top overall pick doing the things that we expected him to do when he first came into the league. And this is ultimately the result when you give him full reins and you give him more than just one weapon to use in the offense. But also, I mean, I think you got to tip your cap to the Lions front office I feel like the Panthers should take some notes on what they're doing over there, because I don't think that you can make 4 better picks if you were picking in a draft in your first 2 rounds. Like those, like Branch, Jahmyr Gibbs, Laporta. I'm missing one. Don't remember who it was,
It's
but
like a linebacker.
yeah. So like all of those players have been pivotal parts of this journey that they've been on, and ultimately, if they do end up making it to the Super Bowl, they will be the reason why they make it as well.
And they got a lot of flack, low key, post draft about that, because they're like, people are like, okay, Bijan should go as a first round running back because people thought he was a generational talent and as good of running back as we've seen since Saquon. But then they're like, people thought that they overreached on Jahmyr. People thought drafting a linebacker in the first round, and then Laporta and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, they got a lot of flack, but I agree with you. Got to give kudos to their front office, and everything's paid off. Got to give respect to Dan Campbell, who I'm not sure if he'll end up getting Coach of the Year based on how everything's going. I feel like you still kind of, I feel like you have to give him the nod personally, not just because I picked him, but I just think that the expectations that people had from him, and people thought he was just kind of like a meathead former tight ends coach, didn't really know, completely how to actually run a team, and they just thought he was just like an energy monster. He's been great. I think he's been great. Mm-hmm. So, but I guess we can stick within the NFC against their opponent. The other games that we had in the NFC obviously was the Green Bay Packers versus the 49ers. And as Drew mentioned, it was kind of a rain game. Brock Purdy did not look very great at all. The Packers had, I feel like, a lot of opportunities to win this game. They dropped a potential pick 6 off of Brock Purdy, and they were up by 7 going into the fourth quarter. And as many people have already talked about, Kyle Shanahan was 0-30 while being down by 7 points or more going into a fourth quarter. And they ended up, getting the drive to seal the deal, and Christian McCaffrey ended up punching it in. And so what were your thoughts on that game? How do you feel about the 49ers going against the Lions? And now there's talk, obviously, Deebo Samuel ended up getting hurt in that game, and now he's a 50-50 with a similar shoulder injury that he had earlier this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, first thing is, like, it's tough to say that the Packers would be a more interesting game this week than the 49ers going up against the Lions. I mean, divisional game, and also the resurgence of the Packers offense, building it up. And it's like, the Packers have owned that division, and then the one last step for the Lions is to go through your division rival. Like, how great of a game would that have been, as opposed to this potential blowout between the 49ers and the Lions. But I mentioned it last week, and I'll mention it again. I thought that the resurgence of Jordan Love was too large to be just this is him, this is how he always is, this is how he's going to be, because he went from, I believe it was like 16th or so in the league in EPA per play as a quarterback, all the way up to 3rd in the league EPA per play as a quarterback. Like, no, like, that just doesn't happen. Like, that kind of a jump just doesn't happen. And especially in the playoffs, when the teams are going to be better, the competition is a lot better. It's not. I
thought he played pretty well this playoffs. I ain't gonna lie. He did not have the best game against 49ers, but I think overall he's played pretty well.
I mean, he had a 54 offensive rating this past week against the 49ers, who, you can't throw against them, but also I think that a lot of people were underrating the 49ers defense and overrating the Jordan Love comparisons to, Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre and things like that.
Getting a little out of hand. They're like ready to deem him the one already. I think he is a great, franchise quarterback going forward for the Packers, but stop comparing him to A-Rod.
Yeah, and the biggest thing too in this game, I believe, was that they stopped going with the run. Like, they were gashing them on the ground. That's the one area that you can beat the 49ers, is on the ground. 18 carries, 108 yards, 6 yards per carry. 6 yards per carry.
Aaron Jones is nasty.
We're gonna pass it.
Yeah.
Like, come on. And along with that too, that was probably one of the worst throws I've ever seen in my life. That Jordan Love made on that
I don't know
play.
what he saw on that. I don't understand it.
It reminded me of when Brett Favre was in Nolans, and he was throwing across his body. It was like the last game that he played, and just threw an interception. The Saints picked it off and ran it all the way back, and it was just glorious. That's exactly what that reminded me of. Granted,
Greenlaw was running step for step with him too, but I don't know what Greenlaw was doing. He was like, I was trying to house that. I was like, bro, if you don't get down on the ground.
Apparently, he had a bet or like a deal with one of the other linebackers.
It was with Fred Warner.
He would get a pick six. Yeah, Fred Warner. That he would get a pick six. And so he was like trying to run it back. He almost damn near cost the game.
He almost fumbled it back to him. He ran like it was like a loaf of bread. And I was like, bro, what are you doing? Go sit down.
Literally. But yeah, moral of the story is that I am scared for the 49ers because though this was, I believe, one of their better wins of the season because it showed that when we're down, we can actually come back, as opposed to before. It was like, we can win if we're ahead. If you were down, then it's over. So
people are moving the goalposts too for him because they were talking. Obviously, it was like, when Brock Purdy actually has to come back in a game, like we'll see how the 49ers look and all these kind of things. But then he actually did it, and people are like, well, technically he was only down by 4 because they kicked the field goal like right in the fourth quarter. And, when we talk about coming back from a deficit, we're talking about like double digits and all that kind of stuff. I was like, okay, well, we're just moving the goalpost, I guess.
Yeah, true. But I don't know. It'll be interesting.
7 points is a
sure.
lot for opening, like 7-point favorites. Like I would take the Lions +7.
I'm sure you would, Alex. Sure you would.
Would you not?
You
just talked about how the 49ers can struggle and all this kind of stuff. So
if Debo is playing,
exactly,
I will take it's all the way down to that my thing hasn't refreshed yet. There we go. Been bumped up to 7.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's at 7.
It was down at 6.5 earlier when I was looking at it.
And they said Debo with the injury, it's not a fracture, but it is basically a similar injury that he had earlier in the season. He missed 2 weeks with that injury. So
because he had a hairline fracture earlier. But I mean, obviously he's gonna play regardless. Like it's a chance to go to the Super Bowl. I think he's still gonna try to gut it out. Especially if it's like 50-50 and it's up to the player, he's gonna be like, "Yep, I'm playing. Just like shoot me up with whatever you got."
Literally,
and he's just gonna be numb the whole.
He said that they can run on the 49ers and stuff, and the Lions have one of the best rushing attacks left in the league, obviously, besides the Ravens. So
yeah, exactly. That's one of the reasons why I'm scared. That's why I haven't made a pick on this game yet. Like I'm just saying, like it's one of those things where on paper it's like, oh yeah, how can you not take the 49ers in this game? But then you look a little deeper and you're like, okay, well, the 49ers actually haven't been that great at defending the run. They're great at defending the pass, but when it comes to defending the rush, they just like fall off a cliff. If I look for them down here, they are, 22nd in the league at defending the run this year. So not good, if you ask me. It's not what you want. Versus 9th when it comes to defending the pass. So it's definitely one of those things that you gotta watch out for if you are looking to back the 49ers at that steep price that Mr. Harris talked about. But it is tempting. It is tempting for sure. So
we're filming on a Monday, so basically we still have about 5 or 6 more days until the game on Saturday and Sunday. But Drew, we're not gonna film again, so I feel like you're gonna have to make some little prediction by at least the end of the episode.
Why?
We ain't gonna. Why not?
I mean, I gotta know the details, man. I can't just be giving out. I can't just be putting my reputation on the line on a Monday with no information. Like, come on, man.
Jeez, I'll give Debo the injection myself. I don't care. He needs to play.
Out there. Let me fly me down. I'll be there in a second.
Fair enough. Okay, moving on to the AFC. I guess we can cover the Ravens-Texans game first. CJ Stroud and the Texans' Cinderella story in themselves finally came to a close as they were hanging pretty tough in the beginning of the game, but then the Ravens slowly started to pull away. Lamar Jackson has been great in these playoffs. Obviously, is going to be the MVP this season. Had 100 yards rushing along with his 2 touchdowns on the ground and 2 touchdowns through the air. Only 150 yards passing, but he didn't really need to pass a whole bunch. And the Ravens ultimately just ended up locking down CJ Stroud, especially in the second half. So thoughts on the game and expectations for the Ravens going forward? You already said that you have them in their Super Bowl. See if that changes now that you got my homeboy.
No, well, one thing real quick is that we had under 44.5 in this game. So that hurt. Or sorry, no, we had under 43.5. My bad.
43.5.
Yeah, that hurt. I was like, oh yeah, we won. And then I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
Well, I don't mess with them halves. Them halves, they're annoying, bro.
Yep, you get hooked. So that's part of getting the best number, so on and so forth, all that good stuff. But whatever. Anyways, moral of the story is Lamar Jackson is him. CJ Stroud is him. However, they just went up against a buzzsaw in the Baltimore Ravens, and they made an adjustment at halftime, because at first what they were doing to Lamar Jackson on the defensive end was actually working. They were blitzing them. They weren't expecting that because the Texans usually don't blitz. They usually kind of lay back a little bit, and obviously that didn't go very well with them before. So they were like, okay, that obviously didn't work before. Let's try something new. Go out, start blitzing them. Okay, good. Holding them down, not moving the ball at all. But then you go into the second half, and the Ravens, I guess, switched up their scheme back to a combination of what they were running last year, along with what they're running this year. So they brought in some plays that ended up obviously doing pretty damn well, and ended up pulling away in the second half of the game. Lamar Jackson ended up finishing up with what you would think wouldn't look like too much of a big game, with only 152 passing yards. But then you go down to his rushing yards, and you see that he had 11 carries for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, as well as 2 passing touchdowns as well. So, like, he's basically the MVP. If you like, I know it's a regular season award and everything like that, but for all those people out there that are saying, "Oh, Lamar Jackson can't get the job done. He won the MVP, but that's all he can do is just do that and be a regular season player." Well, here you go. Take this.
Yeah, I think he was like 1-3 or 1-4, something like that, prior to this playoffs. So now taking the Ravens to the conference championship, especially as we mentioned before, coming off the off season that he had, where it was a dispute between him and the Ravens not looking to resign him. Then it looked like he was on the trade market. Nobody wanted to pay the 2 first-rounders for him, and now he just goes on to win his second MVP and is potentially 1 game away from making the Super Bowl. But I digress. And again, shout out to their defense. And, the Texans really couldn't do anything. The 1 touchdown that they did have came on a punt return, and it was 10-10 going into half. So the Texans defense was able to hold them, but then the Ravens decided to outscore the Texans 24-0 in the second half. So,
and I mean, even was it last year, 2 years ago, when they lost against the Titans? They had about like 500 yards in that game too. So like it's not like, oh, they're not able to do this, they're not able to, like, they've always been a very well-rounded franchise, and they have minimal holes everywhere. Like, it doesn't matter like what year it is or what the makeup of the team is, they're always solid all the way around, whether it's completely average or whether it's completely elite. There's not one part of their team that is ever lacking. Special teams, solid. You got the offense, solid. Defense, solid. It's I think it's the most well-rounded team that's left. And I give the nod to basically whoever's in the AFC is going to win the Super Bowl this year.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. And again, shout out to the Texans and the Packers. Both of them are playing basically with house money, being very two young teams. Obviously, LaFleur has been coaching for the Packers for a while, but D'Amico Ryans, this is his first year as the Texans head coach, and what him and CJ Stroud were able to do. And again, this was out without not Nico Collins, who's
Tank Dell.
Tank Dell. So I think that both the Texans with CJ Stroud and their receiving core with Tank Dell and Nico Collins along with Schultz, and the Packers with their Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, I think they all have bright futures. So definitely wasn't a bad season overall. Lastly, we probably have the game of the weekend, and it was another just infamous or famous, depending on what side of the coin you were on, between the Bills and the Chiefs. Had 27-24 overall. I'll let you go first, Drew. What were your thoughts on this game?
Well, my Bills Mafia, they gave me money for one last time, and I appreciate that out of them. They've saved me in multiple times. What do you mean? They
okay,
made me
because you picked against them. That's right. Right.
I was so tempted to take some futures on them too, but I had missed the boat on the resurgence and everything, so I was just like, well, it can't last, can it? And then they kept on winning, and I was like, well, I'll just play them in spots then. That'll be my version of a future. But I feel bad for Josh Allen. Like, the dude did everything he could to try and win this game.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Like, oh, okay. They're not scheming up any downfield plays. The plays that they do scheme up downfield are to like randoms that are running down the field. They didn't have Gabe Davis, who's usually your downfield target, and like it's not like he wasn't putting the ball right in the breadbasket either. Like, he was putting it right
Diggs
there,
had a big drop,
and it's going through people's hands, and yeah. And then on top of that, speaking of Diggs, my boy, always open. He was on the back of a milk carton for like he was on the back of a milk carton like the past 9 weeks. So I don't know what happened to him or where he's going, but basically he might as well be wearing a ski mask with a gun and taking every check that he gets. Like, it's ridiculous. That is my guy. I always draft him every year in fantasy, but I don't know what happened to him.
Wearing some new threads next season.
Exactly. I think they must have had like a falling out or whatever with McDermott, because wow, has his play completely fallen off, and you can tell how much it's impacting Josh Allen because he's not able to get it to his best player, and you're not able to get the ball to your best player. That's going to be a problem. This is going to be the result. You're going to end up losing again for a trip to go to the conference championship game. So,
yeah, I don't know what's going on with Diggs and Josh Allen, especially over the last half of the season. Shakir, who's really come on for them since Gabe Davis has been out, has over the past 10 games has 37 targets compared to Diggs' 80 targets from Josh Allen, and he still has more receiving yards than Stephon Diggs. I don't understand what's going on, and usually with Stephon Diggs kind of would have like the blow-ups on the sideline, stuff like that. Even though he wasn't, getting, I guess, the volume of yards that he's used to over the past 10 games, I didn't see him blowing up or anything like that on the sideline. So I was like, oh, maybe they're winning, so he can't really complain. But yeah, it just seems like their connection and their chemistry that they've had over the past 4 years kind of just completely disappeared over these past 10 games. And I think that Josh Allen did play a very good game, and him along with the Bills definitely missing some opportunities. We obviously know that the Bills defense was basically torn to shreds and they were losing their backups to their backups midway through the game. But, I think that Josh Allen kind of have to play perfectly to beat Patrick Mahomes, and I don't think that he played perfect game because he missed a throw that would have been a touchdown to go ahead of the game before they missed the field goal. I don't know if it was Sherfield or Shakir. It was one of the two. It was basically like a 30-yard throw right in the back of the end zone. He just didn't get enough on it, so it ended up underthrowing it, and that was basically it, because then you go to try to depend on your kicker, who they talked about before the game with the crosswinds and everything going on, it was going to be hard for them to kick anything over 40, 45 yards, and that's what the kick was. And then you have the wide right with the infamous Bills saying, going back to the Super Bowl. So very unfortunate for the Bills. And I don't know. I just feel because they were favorites in this game, and everybody was always talking about like this is the year the Bills finally have home field against the Chiefs, and they were 0-2 against Mahomes in the playoffs, and everything's aligning perfectly for them. And the Chiefs have been bad, not bad, but they have not been the normal Chiefs that were used to all season. Travis Kelce hasn't looked that great. The Chiefs were still dropping passes and all these kind of stuff. And then, when the rubber needs to meet the road, the Chiefs just do what they do and just, roll out of bed during the season to make the conference championship. That's all we do. So I don't know. I don't know. Patrick Mahomes played solid, and Travis Kelce, caught some touchdowns. Crazy. Yeah. Taylor was there.
Well, exactly. That's why he had to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like one other note too, just on a salty side, I guess we can say, is Josh Allen, 12 carries in this game. He had been trending up basically the past, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks in terms of the amount of times he carried the ball. And so last week I had played over 8.5 carries, and that man decided to get 8 carries. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. All the games, the past 3 games before that, dude, literally, the 3 games before that, he, I believe, had like 10, 9, and like 11 or whatever. And I was like, okay, we're chilling. And then 8.5, and then you come into this week 12, and the week I don't play it, and I'm like, okay, I'm done with you. So that's just a interesting note though, that whenever the games were close, they went back to all reliable, and that's Josh Allen with his legs. And also the one other concerning thing was that how much success that the Bills were having running the ball against the Chiefs. And, going up against the Ravens, a team that wants to run the ball, might be something that is concerning, especially with a mobile quarterback, especially with, Gus Edwards is a little banged up, but with the type of running backs that they do have with the O-line to make every job easier for them, it could be something that is a little bit of a problem for the Chiefs. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I don't know what I understand what the game plan is, I guess, originally with the Bills, and they were, possessing. You want to limit Patrick Mahomes' possession, so you want to try to take as long as you can with your possessions, and they were running all over the Chiefs, and they could not get a stop. Every single run that they had was like 7 yards, and it was like 2 and 2 or 2nd and 3 every single play. So they were ahead of the sticks, and as we mentioned, Josh Allen had 72 yards, James Cook had 61. He had like 61 going into like the fourth quarter, and then he had like -3 yards total. So they were able to stop him there, but they had 182 yards rushing overall. But I don't know if it was just the game plan or Sean McDermott didn't necessarily 100% trust Josh, because he had 26 of 39 from his attempts, and 16 of them were screenplays or behind the line of scrimmage, things like that. As you mentioned, they didn't really air it out. So at times it seemed like they were playing not to lose rather than playing to try to win against Patrick Mahomes. And like I said, I understand that to a degree when you try to want to limit his possessions, but at the same time, I feel like you also kind of have to go out there and win the game. And then by the time they're like, oh, maybe we should try to win the game and go for this fake punt on 4th and 5 when the ball's in our 12-yard line, I'm like, I don't understand. So I just feel like from a coaching perspective, Sean McDermott, who I feel actually had a pretty good season based off how the Bills started and the way that they were able to close at like 9-1 or something like that to close out the season, I think was completely outcoached by Andy Reid in this situation. So that's very unfortunate for him. And then, as I mentioned, I think Josh Allen just with a couple of missed opportunities, and that's basically all it takes for you to lose by 3 to the Chiefs.
Yeah, and it's also the fact that I don't want to say he's not a good coach, because he is a good coach, but his decision making is what has always cost them cost them the games. He does 2 conflicting things. He's like, I want to be aggressive because I don't want the media to get on me, but I want to be conservative because I'm also in charge of the defense, and I don't want my defense to look bad, so we got to hold on to the ball as long as possible, but we also got to move the ball and score. okay, well, we're just gonna go for it on 4th down and give it to Damar Hamlin. Like,
yep. Yeah,
what?
you know how good of a
Like,
headline this is gonna make for us if we come back and win this game. I'm like, Damar Hamlin. I'm like, okay, like that was terrible. I don't know if it was like they said that there was like less players on the Chiefs, or they only had like 10. It was like a check play or something like that. They checked to the fake. I don't know.
Yeah, they only had 10 players on the defense or whatever, so they thought they had an advantage. And even with 10 players, they still
it wasn't close. It wasn't close.
It wasn't even like it was like 4th and 1 or what. It was like
4th and 5 or 4th and 6.
Yeah, I was like, dude, what are you doing? And then you give Mahomes a short field. I don't know.
Yeah, and they actually lived by that, because I feel like the Chiefs had a chance to. Obviously, they only won by 3, but they had a chance to blow this open because like they got the ball there, and then Mecole Hardman fumbled into the end zone at the 1-yard line. So
the worst call in NFL history, or the worst rule in NFL history.
Yeah, I don't agree with the rule either, but it is the rule. So I don't know why he was like trying to stretch out, try to break the pylon, or whatever the case may be. But I mean, the Chiefs had a potential to go up like 10 points midway through the 4th quarter. So all of that. And then at the end, you just could not get a stop. You missed the field goal. You still have an opportunity to get a stop. You have timeouts, but Pacheco runs, kind of turns the tables and runs for 7 yards on the first play, and then basically runs for a first down and closes out the game. So it's I feel bad for Josh. Like you're saying, we started this before we started recording. It's like talked about it's Jordan and all the good players that played in the 90s and things like that, like Reggie Miller and Karl Malone, Stockton, and Patrick Ewing, all these players. But you just happen to play with the GOAT in your era. And Josh Allen, who I feel like is a very good quarterback, as a great quarterback, and has all the potential in the world, whether I say that he's volatile, whatever the case may be. I feel like he's arguably the most talented quarterback when you consider his arm, his ability to throw, his ability to run, scramble out of the pocket, and his size. But he just can't get over the hump and can't beat Patrick Mahomes in playoffs. He's now 0-3 against him. He lost last year to Joe Burrow, and it's the only one quarterback in NFL history has had like 50 touchdowns in a season, like total touchdowns, and not made the conference. It's Josh Allen twice. I feel kind of bad.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like I brought this up so many times. You keep on saying that's not the reason, but the defense finally they caught up with them this game, dude. They were pulling people off the side of the street to put on jersey at linebacker.
27 points, I don't think is that bad. Like,
dude,
they
AJ Klein, he used to be on the Saints. The Saints cut him.
I understand. Hey, Von Miller had a couple plays. He had a couple tackles and stuff like that. I was like, oh my God, I forgot that he played football. Like, it was kind of great. It was kind of crazy. Yeah. But yeah, I know that the defense was completely decimated coming into this game, and everybody knew that. But they were like, well, we don't think that the Chiefs defense, no matter how good it is, being a top 3 defense in the league, we don't think that they're going to be able to stop Josh Allen in the role that the Bills are on. And they honestly weren't able to. The Bills had like 27 first downs, and they had no sacks. But I said, like, you have to play a perfect game to beat Patrick Mahomes. And Josh Allen, albeit he didn't have any turnovers, but he had some throws, some of them that his players dropped, one that he missed. Like, he missed that touchdown. Like, that was the play of the game that they needed, and then they didn't get it. So I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. And now I don't know what you do, because as we had mentioned, like, the Josh Allen and the Bills had only made the conference championship once, and that was basically the breakthrough season. I don't know if that was the first or second season where they had Stephon Diggs, and they were basically like a year early, and people didn't expect them to go that far. Since then, they haven't been back there, and now you're at the point where Josh Allen's contract is going to start taking a major hit when it comes to the cap hit for them. And now Stephon Diggs is going to probably be gone. So, I mean, where do you go? You have James Cook, who's a good young running back for them, and then obviously Shakir and Gabe Davis, I guess. But like, things I feel like are going to look a lot differently next season for the Bills when all these contracts start catching up to them, because they didn't win the Super Bowl in the window that you need to do it, which is early.
You want to know something though? Salary caps ain't real. Okay. Like they literally just keep on moving the pole, like the goalpost, so to speak. Like they're like, oh, they're gonna take a big salary cap hit. They can't afford this. They got to release this, that, and the other. And then somehow they always end up getting more players and end up paying people like out the ass. Like, yeah, for example, especially in baseball too. Like how do the LA Dodgers always how are they always able to afford everybody? How are like all of these teams always able to afford anybody that they want if they can get a good price on them? Like,
Well, that's the thing, though.
regardless of,
Like, you said what?
I was gonna say, like, regardless of how much it costs, like, oh well, it only cost us $500,000 or $500 million to re-sign Patrick Mahomes to this contract, but then somehow they have enough salary and cap to sign pretty much anybody else that they want. That being said, the Chiefs are also set up very nicely in terms of salary cap to continue doing this for like the next 5 years because everybody else other than Mahomes and Kelsey and Chris Jones have like microscopic contracts. So
Yeah, that's the thing, though. I feel like, for a small minority of teams within like sports, so you talked about like the Dodgers or like the Yankees in baseball, like when you're those huge ginormous franchises, you have the money to do that. Or if you're like the Cowboys in football, or you're like the Rams, or a couple years ago, those big franchises in those, whether it be in New York or Texas or California, I feel like have a lot more ability and a lot more wiggle room when it kind of goes into the luxury tax, or I guess it depends on your owner and what they're willing to do and things like that. When you're in Buffalo, I don't think that they're doing, even the Kansas City Chiefs with their contract with Patrick Mahomes, the way that they spread out that contract and the way that did spread out his guarantee, and they had to make the decision not to resign Tyreek Hill because they didn't want to pay that $30 million and go into luxury tax and stuff like that. So they did it well, but I just don't think that the Bills are gonna go all in to make a splash like that. Especially, I don't even know who they would get at this point, but I don't know. I think it's yeah. The window's closed. It's not closed because Josh Allen's going to be a great quarterback in the AFC for the next 10+ years, but like it's not going to be like, oh, okay, the past 3 or 4 seasons the Bills have opened up as like one of the favorites to win the AFC Championship or get to the Super Bowl. It's not gonna be like that no more. And I think people need to stop doing the Brady, Peyton Manning, this era's Patrick Mahomes and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. I think it's a lot closer with Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow than it is with Josh Allen because these are good games, very entertaining games, but they always end up in the same way. So, definition of insanity.
Okay,
I don't know what you want.
I guess that's fair.
But you've already kind of previewed it, so you feel that the Ravens are going to end up beating my homeboy, and this will be the first time that Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson meet in the playoffs. So, how do you feel that this game is going to go? Do you think it's going to be one of the games where the Ravens are just able to completely control the ball and end up being a blowout type thing, or you think it's going to be another close game, like similar to this last one?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's not going to be a blowout. It's hard to blow out the Chiefs. They always have an opportunity to score, even if they're on the 20-yard line. Like, it doesn't matter. They always have an opportunity to score. But the thing that I think is getting, I guess, not talked about enough is the defenses that they've gone against. So, like, is it really a resurgence of the Chiefs' offense, or is it just, bad defenses that they've been playing against and they've been kind of opportunistic in this situation? I think it's maybe a combination of the two. And looking back at, who they've played since week 15, they played against the Patriots. Okay, they had a pretty solid defense. They only scored 27 points against a team that was, quite honestly, one of the worst teams in the NFL. They ended up losing to the Raiders week 16. They put up 14 points. They put up 25 points against the Bengals, who were, I think, bottom 5 in EPA per play this year. And we know
no starters in that game either.
Yeah. And against the Chargers, we don't really need to talk about that game. That was week 18. So that didn't really count. But then you go into wildcard round, 26 points against the Dolphins, who, again, just like the Bills, were bringing people in off the sideline or off the practice squad and off the streets because they didn't have anybody to fill the linebacker position. So
everybody's hurt
in that place. Okay, not their major players, and they literally had like their top 5 starters and the Dolphins were all hurt. So, and then you go against the Bills, who've been decimated by injuries the whole season, and it finally caught up to them. So and they only scored 27 points again. So I just think that it's a combination of the two, for where, it's really convenient that the position that happens to guard your best player, Travis Kelce, is also the position that was hurt in the last 2 games, where they were basically going against like randoms, essentially. So now that being said, it is still Mahomes. It's Mahomes as a dog. He's 9-1 as a dog, or whatever the stat
Say it
is.
again.
Like, okay, I'll say it again. 9-1 as a dog, whatever. Cool. You can't give Mahomes points. It's just a bad decision to do if you're gonna go against him. All these things, whatever they're saying, I don't care. I live and breathe. The Baltimore Ravens are the most complete team that we have in the NFL as it stands today, and they're gonna prove that. And like I said before, Harbaugh's just win. Doesn't matter how they do it, whether it's legal or not, they just win. So
Like
I think they're gonna go in there and get the job done.
It's like you gave him his props at the end, but like your whole little soliloquy prior to that was basically like watering down everything that the Chiefs have done up until this point. Even though you did choose them over the Bills, like the Bills were favored
Did they
at
win?
Buffalo. Like,
did they win?
Yeah, the Chiefs won.
You don't bet teams, you bet numbers, and that was a bad number that they had on the Chiefs.
Yeah, but like I don't think that based on like midway through the season or 10 games into the season, how the Chiefs were playing, I do not think that most people would have been like, yeah, they're a lock for the AFC Championship. And that's not what most people are saying, and that's not what I don't think that's what Drew was saying or a lot of people. But now that they got in here, people are like, basically it was basically a cakewalk. Basically, it happened, and now they actually have to play a good team, as if the Buffalo Bills weren't like 9-1 over their past 10 games and like were favored in that game. I don't know. The only time that somebody's beaten Mahomes when he was an underdog, he just happens to be the GOAT and Tom Brady. I don't know. I agree with you. I think that the Ravens are a better team from top to bottom, because I would give the nod to Patrick Mahomes from a quarterback standpoint, but I think it's close, obviously, with Lamar, who's going to be the two-time MVP with Mahomes, and I guess you could say with Travis Kelce, who hadn't looked great for the majority of the season, but did kind of have a resurgence last game. But everywhere else, basically, I would pretty much choose the Ravens, although besides maybe in the trenches with Chris Jones. That's basically it. But I don't think it's going to be nothing easy, which you said you didn't say it was, but I have more respect for Patrick Mahomes than you do, I think.
Okay. Like, I'm just saying that, since week 9, EPA per play, they're 17th on offense.
Yeah, and they have the third-ranked defense too. I think that their defense is not as good as the Ravens, but I think it's arguably comparable.
9th-ranked defense.
Arguably comparable.
I'm just saying. Like, I just think that, people are thinking that this is the same Chiefs team. Do it.
I'm scared.
Do it.
I'm scared.
Like, people, just Mahomes as a dog, Alex. Just take it. It's so easy. A caveman could do it. Like, just.
I'm gonna wait for that spread to go up a little higher. It's plus 3.5 right now. If it gets to 4.5, it might.
It's not getting to 4.
It
might.
might.
It's not.
It might. Maybe Travis Kelce's like, I got a knee. Little. So just give me a questionable tag. That's all I need. That'll be enough to bump it to a 0.5. That's it. That's all I want.
No, the thing that does scare me is the potential advantage that the Chiefs would have in terms of running or rushing the ball, I should say.
Pacheco's that man.
That scares me, because that is, I don't know what it is about these defenses, like the 49ers and also the Ravens and stuff like that. But when it comes to stopping the run, neither of them can really do that all that well. The Ravens are 24th in the league in EPA per play when it comes to stopping the rush. That's not good. So that would be one area that if they're able to firm up that position, then they would have a chance to hold the Chiefs in this game. However, if Pacheco gets loose, then it's going to be kind of hard to stop both of them. You can stop one, but you can't stop both. So, that'll be a problem for sure for the Chiefs.
Yeah, somebody else is going to have to step up for the Chiefs because somebody, yeah, I think somebody else is going to have to step up for the Chiefs because I think they're going to dial in or try to dial in on Travis Kelce. And then obviously something, as you mentioned, they don't do that great. And slowing down the run is something that they're going to have to try to emphasize and stop. And slowing down Pacheco, we had it last game against the Bills, MVS, who had struggled all season with catching the ball, which is what he's paid to do, actually had two ginormous catches in the game against the Bills. So I don't know if it's him. Rashee Rice didn't really have that big of a game. He went 4 for 47. I don't know if it's Rashee, but somebody else. Got hurt. Yeah, it's true. But somebody else is going to have to come along for the ride. Side note, though, shout out to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He had a very big run in that game. I think that he, former first round, former want to be fantasy great. Still on the team.
I think that it was kind of funny because the year before that was when I picked up Kareem Hunt, and then he was like fantasy gold, and then the next year you picked up CH, and then he was like.
He had like one game. His first game against the Texans, he had like 22 points or something like that, and then from there on out, mediocrity. So, but he's still on the team. He's been formidable as a backup for them at times. Man, yeah, I
take him, Alex.
Nah, you know what I'm saying?
Right
Alternative
now,
splits.
61% of the bets are on the Ravens, and only 39% are on the Chiefs. So, I mean, take the dog.
I will take the Chiefs with an alternative split.
You don't get that. You
Why not?
Play it how it is. Play it how it lies. Goddamn it!
I don't like it. I don't like it. And oh my gosh, because we talked about it before. Actually, I don't know if we talked about it on the show or not. Like Lamar Jackson and we have talked about Lamar Jackson and basically the path that he's had to go through to get to this point, whether it be people wanting him to change his position to wide receiver or running back coming into the draft, people not thinking that he could be a quarterback based off the way that he plays, the way that he looks, the way he sounds, whatever the case may be, and now is just a 2-time MVP and finally has to team the conference championship. The team that really didn't really want to pay him, or the rest of the league that didn't want to pay him to trade for him, now he's here. So I'm going to root for the Chiefs because I like Patrick Mahomes, but I am not going to be mad at all if Lamar Jackson is able to take the Ravens to the Super Bowl. And I think this is the Ravens always usually have a good solid defense. They're always known for physicality, but I think that him and Patrick Mahomes, I think it's fitting because both of them finally have, good defenses and good weapons around them. Patrick Mahomes, I guess you could argue, whatever, but both have good defenses and good weapons, so I think that is going to be a fair matchup, and I don't think people are going to be able to make these excuses like Drew's making for the Bills and their decimated defense and Patrick and Josh Allen playing phenomenally and perfect and still losing the game and stuff like that. I don't want to hear any of that after this game. So if Patrick Mahomes comes back and he beats the Ravens, I don't want to hear, he only had Zay Flowers to throw through. OBJ is 27,000 years old, and actually I don't know if Mark Andrews, have they talked about him or not?
Because I think it's like if they make the Super Bowl, then he'll probably play in that.
Because Isaiah likely's filled in formidably, so just give that man his respect, Drew.
That's like one of those things too, where it's like, okay, well now we're playing against the Ravens in the Super Bowl. Oh, now our best receiver is coming back, so good luck.
You're right. That's not very fair.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, I'm just saying they have been very fortunate with the teams that they've been playing this year in the back half of the season that has inflated some of their numbers. So just tread lightly if you are looking to back the Chiefs.
What numbers are inflated? Exactly.
Oh.
What?
On the defensive end, man.
Okay, well, what?
What do you mean?
You saying that their numbers are inflated for their defense, or numbers are inflated for their offense for the Chiefs?
Sorry. On the offensive end, their numbers are inflated because of the competition that they've been playing. People are like, oh yeah, this is the Mahomes of yesteryear, and there's they're going to be putting up 40 points a game, 30 points, and everything like this. Before, if I read you off, this is what the Kansas City did at the end of the last season, starting in week 15, like we did before. 30 points, 24, 27, 31, 27, 23, 38. So, and then you go to this season, going back to week 15, 27, 14, 25, 13, 26, 27. I don't see any 30-point games in there, and the 27 and 25-point games were against teams that had basically piss-poor defenses. So, or the defense was severely decimated to where they were pulling scraps together to make a linebacking position. So
you can only play who's in front of you. And
I know, and I don't know. That's what I'm just saying. You got to look deeper than just, oh well, look at these are the stats. This is how it is. You got to ask yourself, how are these stats coming to be? Because it's not all just in the numbers. There's a story behind everything as well too.
Yeah, I think you could say you could.
I need to drink this kombucha.
You could say that their offensive numbers are inflated. I think that everybody's unanimously agreed that this is the worst offense, or I guess group of weapons, that Patrick Mahomes has ever had in his career. And obviously we talked about Rashee Rice coming on over the past 10 weeks or so like that, but this is obviously Travis Kelce's looked old. He looks like he's lost a step, even though he had a good game. But this is why I talked about, I feel like you should have re-signed Juju, especially over MVS, to have another possession receiver, somebody that can actually catch the ball, that you can depend on. And then if you would have added him with Rashee Rice, I think that would have been a better combination than what they have right now. But again, it doesn't matter what he has. It doesn't matter what his offense are, if it's overrated or inflated or whatever the case may be. All we do is roll out of bed and make the AFC Championship.
I will give them. It was impressive that they, on 47 plays, only 47 plays, they were able to put up 27 points. That was impressive, because the Bills,
that's what they do.
78 plays.
That's what they do.
Bills ran 78 plays and put up 24 points. So
that's the recipe. That's what everybody always says the recipe is, because that's what Tom Brady was able to do it. You need to score on your possessions. They need to be long possessions. You need to be able to run the ball efficiently, and then you need to not be able to make mistakes. And the Bills did all of that, but they did make a mistake because they could not throw the touchdown to Shakir. And that's what it is. And I think that, so I don't know. I don't know. I think that people are overrating Josh Allen's game. So that's how I feel.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like this game, like this last game that he just had, or like overall?
Yeah, well, no, this game. And I think that's partly to do with Sean McDermott, because I think that, I don't want to say training wheels, but like they did not let him play the way that he has the potential to play. But I feel like you do that because when Josh plays the way that he has the ability to play, that also can lead to him turning the ball over a lot when he's basically airing it out and things like that. They didn't have any plays down the field. The Chiefs had 8 plays of 20 plus yards in the game, and the Bills didn't have anything. Over half of Josh Allen's throws were behind the line of scrimmage because they're all dink and dunks, and they just didn't let him air it out. And then the 2 times that he did, Stephon Diggs dropped the ball and he missed the pass to Shakir. So I think that, if you look at his numbers, he had 70 yards rushing with his touchdowns, and then he only had 180 yards passing or whatever, but that was because they were all dink and dunks. But I think that he could have played better, and I feel like you have to play basically perfect to beat Patrick Mahomes. But I don't think that the Ravens need. That's one thing I'm talking about. I don't think that the Ravens, because of the weapons and the ways that they can beat you, whether it be defensively, whether it be ground and pound, whether it be the receiving core weapons that they have multiple ways to beat you. And I don't think that the Ravens need to play perfect in Baltimore to beat the Chiefs. That's why I'm scared.
And with that, you're taking the Chiefs still,
with an alternative split.
What number would you need to say, yep, I'm gonna take the Chiefs?
What is it right now?
3.5.
5.
Dude.
4.5.
Really?
Yep.
Why 4.5? 4.5 is like no man's
because
land.
I think that it could be a 4-point game, and I'd want the 0.5 to win.
I hate you.
that's why.
That's logic.
If somebody scores a touchdown and the other person scores a field goal, then the difference is 4 points. And if you would have taken that 3.5 and it would have, boiled down to that, then you lose. And we're on the wrong side of these 0.5 splits like we have been over the past 3 weeks or whatever with some of these certain games and bets and things like that. So I think that one extra point isn't being greedy or anything like that. It's 4.5. You know what I'm saying? You guys are already the juggernaut. You guys are already this, oh my God, Jesus, you got the MVP and everything, and you got Zay Flowers, and you got OBJ, and you got Bateman, and you got Gus Edwards, and whatever the case may be. Yeah, 4.5. And we don't even would you like to bet me with the 4.5? Be our last bet before the Super Bowl. If you give me the 4.5, then I will give you the 49ers, and I'll lower the spread on that game because so I'll take the Chiefs plus 4.5, and then I will take the Lions minus 6.5 or plus 6.5.
Wait, plus 6.5? Wait, no.
Right now it's 7.5, 7.5, is it not?
It's 7. Like, why are you?
Okay, then 6.
A half point.
Then 6.
Yeah.
I don't know how much fairer I can make that.
I want 3.
What? You're judging me for trying to go up 1.5. Andrew's like, nah, 4.
I don't have Debo. I don't have Debo. Huh? You know,
you might.
I don't have Debo. That's
you
scary.
might.
I don't want might. Well, I might want 3 points.
You have Brock Purdy, who at one point in time was leading the MVP race. You have George Kittle, top 3 tight end in the league. You have Christian McCaffrey, who's the best running back in the league. And then you probably have arguably like a top 5 number 2 in Brandon Ayuk, even if Debo doesn't play, with a better defense than a far better defense than the Lions, who got Jared Goff. I don't want to hear nothing.
Well, I mean, apparently Jared Goff is like the second coming of Christ because he can make all the throws now, and he's just, if
he's
like,
not pressured,
flawless.
then he's like a great quarterback. But if you get pressure on him, then he's prone to making mistakes, and he almost made some mistakes against the Bucs, but they were only able to get 2 sacks. And I'm gonna say, go on a wild limb here, and even though the Bucs have very fast linebackers, I'm gonna say that the rush for the 49ers is just a little bit better than the Bucs, because they just went out and got every fucking rusher on earth. They have everything on top of Joey Bosa or Nick Bosa. So,
I mean, Nick didn't even really do anything last game, though.
Where are the Lions better than the 49ers?
I think that they have an advantage running the ball against the 49ers defense.
I don't care if you have Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. Christian McCaffrey is better than all of them. And
well, I mean, I know shit, Sherlock. Like, you know, Captain Obvious checking in.
Well,
but, like,
I mean,
I'm saying that there is an advantage at that spot on the offense compared to their defense.
What's the Lions' rush defense rank compared to the 49ers? So I don't think it's that big of a difference, especially when you compare the running backs.
Let's see. So, you want last 9 weeks, or do you want all time, like the whole season?
Because if you go last 9 weeks.
If you go last 9 weeks, rushing EPA, the Detroit Lions are actually second.
And mind you, the 49ers just came off a game. Obviously, Aaron Jones went ham sandwich and had like 100 plus yards. And Rashad White, who you even said is not a good running back, did not have. So they were able to limit that. So I think that helps their numbers a lot if you want to compare the last 9 weeks on the small sample size. So.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Well, fine. I'll expand it out.
So there you go. Fine. I like I said, I want the Chiefs plus 4.5, and then you get the 49ers minus 6. 1 point on each side.
You know what, Alex? You know what I want to do? You know what I want to do instead? I'll take the Ravens minus 6.5. If you give me the 49ers minus 3.5. I'll give you the hook.
There we go.
All right.
6.5 and 3. I don't know why you did. You're just completely disrespecting Patrick Mahomes. You're just like, nope, screw it. No. All right. Anything else that you want? Oh, I guess I didn't really get a chance to. Like, I think that I have no idea who's going to be in the Super Bowl. I'm not going to lie to you. When in doubt, just lean to whatever the Super Bowl graphic was, which was the 49ers and the Ravens. But I want Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, and I think it'd be really cool if the Lions made the Super Bowl. But I mean, I don't know. Which is weird though, because like a lot of people have talked about like the Lions are low key built to kind of beat the 49ers at this point in time, especially if Debo doesn't play. And the way that they run the ball, the versatility, and if they're able to keep Jared Goff semi clean, you know, maybe he can do some things. But I don't know. Anything else that you wanted to cover in the NFL then? Because I'm scared. So.
I mean, we didn't really touch on that Lions 49ers game too much, but I think like you were saying, a big key to the game is it's going to be whether or not you can keep Jared Goff upright, and one of the biggest things too is Jared Goff on the road? Is Jared Goff playing outdoors? You're checking 2 of those boxes already, and it's a big game for Jared Goff as well. And granted, he has passed those tests, but the last factor that you had brought up was Jared Goff under pressure. And oh man, hold your horses for this one. Go ahead and sit down if you're in a place to sit down. If you're driving, pull off to the side here, all right? So, Jared Goff with a clean pocket has a passer rating of 116.1. Yeah, it's great. Solid. However, Jared Goff under pressure. You want to take a guess?
He's James Winston.
Yep. 62.9 passer rating. Mm-hmm. That is basically on par with probably Kenny Pickett in his clean pocket passer rating. But so it is not pretty whenever Jared Goff gets pressure on him. And guess who's coming to town, or I guess who they're going to meet in their other town, Jared Goff's old stomping grounds. Brock Purdy, 49ers, Debo, and that defense that, like you had mentioned before, rush everybody and have the most pressures in the NFL. It's gonna be a problem for sure. So, but
like, it don't make no sense because, like I said, if we keep Jared Goff clean, then he'll pick you apart and he'll get these passes to Raymond and Williams, who's come on a lot for them over the past few weeks, and obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown and Laporta. He'll even have versatile with Jahmyr Gibbs. But when you rush him, it looks terrible, and all you have is Nick Bosa and Hargrave, and they picked up Chase Young towards midway through the season for no reason, because they're just like, why not? And Eric Armstead and all of these players. And I think one of the things that the Lions do best is being able to run these stretch plays to the outside, especially with Jahmyr Gibbs, and then when they get to the goal line, then they're able to punch it down the middle with David Montgomery. I think that with Fred Warner and with Greenlaw being very fast linebackers, that it'll give them a lot trouble, and it'll make it harder for that. And meaning over time, you're just going to have to depend more and more on Jared Goff, especially if they have to start coming from behind, if they 49ers get out to an early lead. Pause. But I mean, I guess you could argue the same thing. If Hutchinson's able to get some pressure on what's his name? On Brock Purdy, and the Lions actually capitalized on these potential turnovers, unlike the Green Bay Packers did, where they dropped a pick six and they dropped another interception, then it could go either way. As many people said, let's see how Brock Purdy looks when he actually has to face this pressure or come from behind or going out and win a game. They didn't want to give him his respect and props for the win against the Packers and that comeback win, but let's see how it looks against the Lions, who have been great offensively, and at times defensively they've shown sparks, and we'll just have to wait and see. I just don't think that the Lions defense is that great. And if the 49ers do have everybody playing with Debo, even at 70%, 60%, whatever you want to call it, I don't know if they'll be able to stop them with just how versatile the 49ers are with Debo and Ayuk, with Kittle, and with C-Mac. I mean, I just don't see where the stops are coming from unless Brock Purdy starts to revert back to that 0-3 Brock Purdy that we saw midway through the season and partly through the Green Bay Packers game, which is possible.
And another cherry on top of that for our good old buddy boy Jared Goff is that your starting center is also hurt. He's also the number one center per Pro Football Focus in the league. So if you're not going to have that guy out there, Ragnow out there, and you're also going up against the number 3 ranked pass rush in the league, like that's recipe for disaster. And if it doesn't get much worse than that, sure, the pass rush isn't great for the Detroit Lions, are 19th in the league. It gets worse when it comes to the coverage. They are, scroll all the way down here, 29th. They are below the Philadelphia Eagles when it comes to coverage. And we saw how well they did in their game against the Buccaneers. So
yeah, and I think they had some injuries in the coverage as well, and then they immediately started going to them, and then Mike Evans again just had 150 yards and a touchdown. Even K. Dotton was out there looking like Travis Kelce. Like they couldn't stop anything. So,
for real, yeah, it's I mean, now okay. All that said, I am still scared because of how easy the Packers made moving the ball look against the 49ers. Like it looked pretty effortless whenever they had the ball, except for when they started passing the ball with Jordan Love against one of the best passing defenses in the league, instead of just continually running the ball with Aaron Jones getting 6 yards a carry. Why would you stop doing? I digress. But it was concerning if I am a 49ers fan or 49ers backer in this spot, which is why I haven't played anything in this game just yet, because again, I need to see the injury report, make sure Debo is going to play, and also I am scared. So
yeah, fair enough. I think it's going to be a close game, which is why I think that I would take that 7 points. Me myself personally, would you take the 7 points?
It is tempting. It is very tempting for sure.
Well, that's why they made it.
It is scary. That's why I wanted 3.5 and not 7.
Facts. Facts. Anything else that you wanted to touch on in the NFL before we, touch a little bit on this NBA?
No, I believe that's everything. Did you say who your Super Bowl pick was?
I did not. I did not.
Who are you locking in?
You know what? Fine. I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and say that it's gonna be a 2020-21 rematch. 49ers Chiefs. That's what I'm gonna say. That's what I'm saying. I'm rolling with my homies.
Yeah.
I can't.
I think the best matchup would be probably either Ravens or Chiefs, but I really want to see the Lions get there. I
want to see that too. If I had a choice, I would choose the Chiefs and the Lions just because I'd like to see that. But I think that 49ers Chiefs definitely has more history from their Super Bowl already. So that would be a nice game. But like I said, Lamar Jackson Super Bowl, I would be thrilled either way. So I'm content no matter how this goes. I think that these teams did ultimately end up being the 4 best teams. I didn't even get to talk about the I don't know what happened with the Cowboys. That's so bad. Yeah. And they're not making any changes either. They're like, nope, McCarthy, you're coming back. Nope, Dak, we're gonna pay you probably. But yeah, they're not making any changes too. I know you covered it a little bit, but that's bad. That's bad. And I think that the only silver lining in that situation was the fact that the Packers almost beat the 49ers, and it was a very close game to be like, okay, they were a really good team, but because if the 49ers would have stopped the Packers, that would have made it look even worse. But the Packers dismantled the Cowboys, and wow, that's just so bad. And if you're a Cowboys fan, like you're very used to that. It's been going like that for the past 27 years, whatever the case may be. But, I'm sure y'all will be back next year talking about this is the one. So
this is our year. We can do it, guys.
It's our year. So yeah, side note, what situation would you rather be in? Would you rather be in the Packers situation, who now have Jordan Love, who seems like he's taking the reins, and obviously have the great young receiver core, along with Aaron Jones, who is an older and aging running back? I believe he's like 28. Or would you have the CJ Stroud situation with him and the great receiving core that they have with Nico and Tank Dell and Schultz, even though they don't have that great of a running game, even though Singletary showed his, sparks. But both good young situations.
Easy decision here. It's got to be the Texans.
Agreed.
Like, not only do you have a young up and coming offense, but you also have a young up and coming defense as well. And D'Amico Ryans is that dude. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he won Coach of the Year this year, exceeding all expectations, winning a playoff game as well. I mean, dude, like, their win total was like, I think 4, like 4.5 or something like that. And they made it to the divisional game. So I think that the Texans are definitely in a better position than the Patriots, the Packers are right now. And I mean, you know how I feel about Jordan Love. I'm still not a believer, but I think, yeah, the CJ Stroud showed that regardless of what you think about him, as he's throwing to wide open receivers or whatever, he's not going to be the same in the NFL. It takes some time for most rookie quarterbacks to get the hang of things. No, that ain't me. I've been doing this thing since I was like 3 years old, slanging that thing. I am him. D'Amico Ryans is him. Tank Dell is him. Nico Collins is him. Like,
yeah, they're saying that CJ Stroud is probably going to be like a top 7 MVP potential favorite next season, which is kind of crazy to think about. But I mean, shoot, I don't know. Also, side note, Raiders did what they were supposed to do, and they did sign Antonio Pierce, deserving contract from a coach. They're literally not even by Raiders fans, which would have been scary enough. They would have been just by just the world. Like, okay, so that was good news. But that's pretty much everything I got in the NFL. Yeah. Chiefs 49ers. Book it.
Okay. All right. We'll see.
Book it.
We'll see. Well, actually, hold on here, sir. I got one last thing. I'd like to give a quick shout out to my
holster.
Yep. I want to give a quick shout out to the homegirl Coco Gauff. She won her match today, and I believe that she has a very good chance to take home the title in the Australian Open. And I'm also out here supporting my my homegirl Serena Williams. Not just the greatest female athlete, but the greatest athlete in general. So those are the last things that I got for y'all this week.
Fair enough. Well, on that note, thanks for listening, everybody. This has been the Call Your Shot podcast. Call Your Shot podcast. Your host, Alex Harrison, Drew Moore. As always, if you like this podcast, make sure to give it a like, give it a follow. If you go to our Instagram, it has the links to our YouTube and our picks. If you are following on YouTube, make sure, again, to give us a like or a dislike, whatever the case may be. Comment. Anything else, Drew?
No, that's pretty much everything. I think that Alex's choices to go against me this week on some of his picks are going to be fatal for him.
Reconfirm. I have the Chiefs plus 6.5, and I have the Lions plus 3.5. So that is what we had agreed upon.
Yep, absolutely.
There we go. It'll be a very, very fun and entertaining weekend. I think that these would be 2 very good games. And, last week we were besides obviously the Ravens blowing out the Texans, all the other 3 were very good games as well. So that's what I'm hoping for. So with that, we will see y'all next week.
Peace out.